Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Thank you, Mario, but our greatest hits are in another castle. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as I am always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. Mark, how's it going?
It's going great. We are deep into the holiday season.
So deep.
So I've got to ask you, Patrick.
We're kind of almost like, I know it hasn't happened yet. We're almost at the end of the holiday season. Yes.
Yeah, pack it up. We might as well just call it over.
Right.
Before Christmas.
I've already burned down my tree.
Wow. Well, that actually leads into the thing I was going to ask you.
Yes.
Which is so holiday season means a lot of different things for a lot of different people, but I feel like kind of like the main things that for me I think of where I'm like, oh, it's the holiday season are lights, food,
camera,
and action.
lights,
like holiday foods, and then
song,
and then music.
Right.
And which one do you think is most important to you? Like, if somebody was like, look, I'm getting rid of all holiday stuff except for one thing.
Sure.
You have to choose one of these three. Or maybe it's something else. Like, what do you think you'd choose? Clearly, it's not a tree.
It's right, because I've already burned the tree down.
And it was plastic, too. So the fumes are still, we're still
yeah,
airing
no,
it out.
it's the place smells and looks terrible. I don't know, because I feel like there are other, like, if there was one, like, holiday tradition that I couldn't live without.
Yeah.
I guess probably lights.
Mm-hmm.
I always like get the hankering for Christmas music at some point during the season. But I also get sick of it. This happens to me every couple weeks, I think, that I just get like beset with the idea that there are like a finite number of popular songs just like in the world, where like you ever like listen to the radio and you're like, man, how many times am I gonna have to hear Eve 6 in my life? Right? Where you're just like this doesn't make sense. Like, why am I hearing "Don't Speak" on the radio in the year 2023? Like,
because you're listening to an oldies station.
Because I'm listening to an oldies station. That's right. But like the holidays, like double, like triple. It makes it such a where you're like, oh no, there are really only like 50 songs that we can hear during this time.
No, it's true. It is a deck of cards.
Yes,
absolutely, and it just gets reshuffled all the time.
It's a deck of cards.
With
yes.
Occasionally,
I want dice, baby.
Yeah, occasionally a new one.
Fewer.
yeah, fewer. But no, I totally hear what you're saying. So I listen to YouTube, like video game music mixes while I'm working all the time.
Right.
And sometimes I'll do a seasonal one. So people will make ones that are like Nintendo music for spring and that sort of stuff.
Sure.
And in the holidays, I like it, but I can only take so much of it because you realize that the sound of Christmas, like Christmas music, is so repetitive, and it's a lot of like sleigh bells and a lot of like that stuff that you're like, after a while, it's like, oh, I've got to like sit in a dark room.
Right. I have to look. I just need like some percussion with some edge or something. And I will of course use this opportunity to plug Brian Tio's lo-fi Christmas music record. Brian Tio, of course, the man behind 8-Bit Betty. You can go to, like, I believe it's on his Bandcamp, or you can just like check out the YouTube. It's a fun like EP of 5 lo-fi like Christmas tunes. So there's some like chip tune in there, but otherwise it's just that kind of like lo-fi. And he does such a nice job of not being like the 12 Christmas songs that you hear. So,
and don't get me wrong,
recommend that.
I love those 12 Christmas songs.
Sure.
But just want to hear them a little bit.
Yes. And it just it amplifies my existential dread. What is yours? I said lights.
Oh yeah. I think for me,
camera or action?
I think I got to settle on action. I am a man of action.
I've never known that to be true of you. I have a secondary question that is not about what holiday things we deem essential, which is feels like it ties into the topic we're going to discuss today. I was reading our cold open, something that we wrote, and then as usual, realized too late that I was going to have to perform it, and then I was like, "What voice is this in?"
Okay, it's so funny you said that because as we wrote it down,
yeah,
I was grappling with the fact that I had never really considered who is saying those things, if in fact it is being said at all. And then my second thought was, you're toads.
You're right. Well, the royal retainers, right? We went through this when we ranked toads. That like these are a specific kind of toad. They're I believe they're referred to as retainers.
And so, do you think then that the voice is different because it seems like a toad sounds like a toad?
Yeah, I mean, boy.
Or do you think it's like a reverse eunuch thing? Because toads normally sound like eunuchs, but in the toad world,
sure,
the royal retainers have
they sound like Muppet eunuchs. So in the Super Mario Brothers movie, there's like a toad with like a deep voice.
Yeah, but
you're not even gonna entertain the concept that these could be the same conceptually.
I just prefer not to live in that world.
Yeah, all right. So I did it as sort of like a like there's a slightly more like effeminate quality to the voice. I did it as like a little bit higher status, like thank you, Mario, but our princess is in another castle. How do you think I should have?
I mean, honestly,
like that feels okay.
I thought that was great. You killed it. Don't overthink it.
Let's just do like a couple different takes. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Mario. No, it's no good.
No, our princess is in another castle. That's funny. I was shaking my head left and right, like I don't think it can get any better than this.
Oh, like you nailed it. Okay, hold on. All right, here we go again. Thank you, Mario, but our princess is in another castle.
I prefer the toad one. I'm just gonna be honest.
All right, one last one.
Okay.
Thank you, Mario, but our princess is in another castle.
Yeah, I mean, kind of sound like you're starring in Charles in Charge, but I still think the Toad one is my favorite.
All right, well, so from here on out, I want everyone to put that Toad voice sound clip in your head when you play Super Mario Brothers 1.
Yeah, I've really never thought about it before, but I think we cracked it.
I never have either. It made me freak out a little bit at the top of this episode. All right. If you would like to support us, you can head on over to patreon.com/Nintendo Cartridge Society, where we've got a Patreon. And if you are supporting us at the 8 or 16-bit levels, you get access to our once-a-month episodes of miniseries that we are putting out. We are about to dig back into, or not back into, it's a brand new miniseries we've never done before called
NCS Arcade.
NCS Arcade. We are going to be playing The Legend of Zelda, the Minish Cap, for our January episode. If you would like to play along, you should. And then listen to us on Patreon. Also, we have a Discord. If you would like to come in there and talk to us about Nintendo stuff, you can. All you gotta do is get an invitation from us, which you can do by emailing us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com. We'll send you an invitation. It is just that easy. Mark, do we have another episode this week?
We don't. We
don't have another episode this week. Because look, we're so close to the end of the holidays.
We're so close to the end of the holidays.
And we got to spend a lot of time mopping up my melted plastic tree.
That's right. We don't have a second episode this week, and we have no episode at all next week. We are taking next week off.
That's right.
Yeah.
But then we'll be back in January with like a ton of things, so it's going to be great. All right, Mark, let's figure out what's essential, what's the next step, and what's a deep cut for the Super Mario Brothers series. All right. So we just did this for the Legend of Zelda series.
Yep, that's right.
And now we are embarking down the same task with Super Mario Brothers. Go ahead.
Does this feel already more challenging? Because when we were writing these out, you know, it is a few more games than what we were dealing with Zelda, and yet the weight of it felt different.
The weight of it does feel different, and there are, it almost feels like there are more obscure corners of mainline Mario.
Yeah.
And Mario is also so frequently purposed and repackaged that you and I had to come to terms with a lot of like what actually constitutes a Super Mario Brothers game. Sometimes there are 2 games on 1 cartridge. Sometimes one game gets released a billion times. And what do we count all these things as?
Yeah.
But as before, the sort of premise here is that we are going to take the 2 new Super Mario games for the Switch, and we are going to count those as the greatest hits. The most likely entry points for people who are currently playing Nintendo that have, probably either like are new to the ecosystem, or who've come back to the Switch after a long time away.
That's right. Because just to restate what we're doing here, in case you didn't listen to the Zelda episode, which you should, it's good. And
it's a good one.
If you haven't yet, this will tee it up perfectly. But the goal here is kind of like in Apple Music, they have this idea for artists or used to, of greatest hits, essentials, next step, and deep cuts. And what we're not really looking at here, which is different from our normal episodes, when we're doing like rankings or sortings or those sorts of things, is those are judgments of quality where we're saying definitively, a lot of times this is the best, definitively, this is the worst. And that's really not the exercise here. Our thought is that Patrick and I have been, playing Super Mario Brothers games since the original Super Mario Brothers on the Nintendo Entertainment System when it was first released. Like we have been around playing Nintendo games for that long, but we recognize that not everybody has. And so the goal of this is saying, like you were saying, Patrick, that the premise is that most people have probably played Super Mario Brothers Wonder or Super Mario Brothers Odyssey on the Switch. And so but there's probably a back catalog of Mario games that a lot of people haven't played. And so what we're trying to do is to say, okay, if those are our greatest hits, if Super Mario Brothers Wonder and Super Mario Odyssey are the greatest hits, then what are the essential Mario games that somebody should play next? And then what are those next steps and what are those deep cuts that we're not saying are not good or should not be played, but maybe you don't need to rush right into them?
Yeah, or that if you were encouraging someone to play them, that you would be doing so under the caveat, but you gotta really want to do it, right? Like that's sort of how we approach the Zelda ones too, where it's like, no, you want to like nurture someone's affection towards the series. And not like immediately challenge them with some relic that you liked when you were 13, which is going to be something that we struggle with when we get to Mario 64, for example.
Right, exactly.
But and this is because the Super Mario Brothers series is so meaningful to me and to you. I think this is going to be hard because I in some ways feel like all of these are essential. Like I think there are some easy non-essential ones.
But I see what you're saying. Like an argument could be made.
Yes.
For each game on here.
We were sort of we had many more deep cuts in the Zelda like grouping than we did any other category. And I'm not sure that that's going to be the case.
That very well could turn out to be true. I feel like by virtue of being an essential, like it's
got to really be essential.
It kind of seems like it necessarily has to be the most elite category.
Yeah,
but hey, on Apple Music they fill an entire playlist with essential songs.
That's true.
We will see. But
most bands have a catalog bigger than 23 songs. But yeah.
Let's go ahead and run down the games.
Yes.
And I think a lot of this will be self-evident, but it's possible that we left out, something.
We're prepared to add games.
We are prepared to add games
as we go. And this is all just as we did with Zelda. These are all mainline Super Mario games, which means that there are no RPG spin-offs, no sports spin-offs, no karting spin-offs, no board game spin-offs. And no venturing into Mario versus Donkey Kong, into the Donkey Kong games, into like OG Mario Brothers in the arcade. Like we're starting with Super Mario Brothers and sort of proceeding forward in that vein.
Yep, absolutely. So kicking it off with Super Mario Brothers.
And then Super Mario Brothers 2, The Lost Levels.
Super Mario Brothers 2 USA.
Super Mario Brothers 3.
Super Mario Land.
Super Mario World.
Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins.
Super Mario 64.
And so actually I don't know the release order, but you'll see there that we did not venture into the first like Wario Land game.
Right, or Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island.
Yep. Super Mario Sunshine.
New Super Mario Brothers.
Super Mario Galaxy.
New Super Mario Brothers Wii.
Super Mario Galaxy 2.
Super Mario 3D Land.
New Super Mario Brothers 2.
New Super Mario Brothers U.
New Super Luigi U. We're breaking out separately right now.
Yes, we are breaking that out as a separate game experience because, as I said when Mark and I were deciding whether we should break it out or not, I said, let's not be slaves to the marketing just because these things have been bundled together in the past. They are different game experiences. I got really militant and annoying about it.
Just remind me, could you buy Super Luigi U separately? Like it wasn't DLC.
Right.
U.
Right.
Okay. It wasn't until Deluxe that they bundled them together.
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, I mean, they released a Wii U that had them both together but on separate discs.
But you didn't need. Sorry, you never needed.
That's right.
On the Wii U, you didn't need to own Super Mario Brothers U in
That's
order
right.
to own Super Luigi U.
Right.
Okay. Cool.
Well, and even beyond that, we have another entry later on that.
That's right. You're right.
Is only available on
right.
the cart with something else. So
you're right. Super Mario 3D World.
Super Mario Maker.
Super Mario Odyssey.
Super Mario Maker 2.
Oh yeah, do we want to address Super Mario Maker, why it's on here, or do we feel like it needs no explanation?
I mean, I think we will have to discuss it when we get to it, but I mean, it feels to me, it is like in some ways its own series, and then in some ways like a continuation of like the Mario like Paint Studio and Mario Paint, like Artist Studio. What's the name of that Nintendo 64 DD thing?
Yeah, I can't remember. I think you're right. I think it's like Artist Studio or something like that.
But it undeniably carries forward like the legacy of like 2D Mario platforming in a game where you play as Mario. I don't think Mark is totally convinced that these belong on here.
I'm not, but I'm let's let it settle.
Let's let it settle. And I think also in conversation about them, I think the original Super Mario Maker almost gets disqualified because it's not going to be playable in like a year.
Yeah, that's very true.
So next, so after Super Mario Maker 2, we've got Bowser's Fury, which was the sort of like pack-in included with
Super Mario 3D World on Switch.
There you go.
And then finally, Super Mario Brothers Wonder.
Yes. So by virtue of the premise of the conversation, Super Mario Odyssey and Super Mario Brothers Wonder, we are sorting them directly into the greatest hits category.
Good for you, kids.
Good for you, kids. Which now then leaves us with the impossible task of the entire thing that we're doing. So with Zelda, we kind of started with, but I don't think there are straight lines through this. Is sort of a problem I'm seeing.
Right, but with Zelda, we found a trunk with a link to the past, and then followed that family tree, and explored that way. Yeah, this is a little bit harder because there's no direct lines where like there is, but they're also like shorter. You know what I mean? Like, sure, you could discuss Galaxy or you could discuss New Super Mario Brothers. And hey, maybe that's our way in talking about the New Super Mario Brothers series.
Okay.
Because I do feel like there are.
We're talking about 5 games in this series.
Yeah, which is a big chunk.
It's true. A huge chunk
of this like Super Mario collection that we have laid out here. The new series takes up a lot of that.
Do you think that any of the new Super Mario Brothers games are essential?
Yes, I do. And my leaning is towards New Super Mario Brothers U. But the reason I feel like one of them should be an essential pick is because it is such a like a chunk of Mario like history,
Sure.
and they're not bad games.
I will agree that they're not bad games.
Like New Super Mario Brothers.
This is making me realize something.
Hi.
Does Run need to be on here?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, we kind of were just by de facto limiting it to like Nintendo hardware.
Yeah.
But that doesn't have to be true. We could put Run on here.
I feel I'm gonna make up a card for Super Mario Brothers or just Super Mario Run. Right?
I think that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I mean, yeah. I think my argument would be that, like, I hear what you're saying, that maybe they are not the best the series has to offer, but I feel like if we are removing our nostalgia for the games from our childhood, that I think, New Super Mario Brothers U is a very good game, and it may not be the most essential game for somebody to play after playing Odyssey and Wonder, but I think it's a really darn good Mario game, and we would be remiss if we don't have a New Super Mario Brothers game in the essential category, in my opinion.
Just because it represents such a large, like, chunk of this game catalog.
Yeah, and I also think that one of the things we were talking about with the Link to the Past is how much that indie games had resuscitated that sort of like style of A Link to the Past, where that game no longer feels dated because there's so many indie games that are modeled after that. And I feel like that is true of the like 8-bit Mario aesthetic as well, but less for platformers.
I the only place that I would push back against that is that I do think that 8-bit platformers in the last like decade, that there is a real place for them, but they all have an angle that's different than Mario, right?
Yeah.
Like, we see the sort of like rise of the mega challenging platformer, right? Like with your Celestes and Meat Boy, and those are the only two examples that come to my mind immediately, but those are two good examples. So I do think that those games do exist, but their priorities are different, right? Like,
yeah.
Mario is frequently an experiential game and a game about exploration, experience and exploration versus like platforming challenge. So I can live with one of the new Super Mario Brothers games being an essential game, and I think the best one of them is New Super Mario Brothers U. So I guess sort of like by default, I agree with that categorization.
Okay. I mean, hey, I'll take it. Okay, so New Super Mario Brothers U being put into essential, and I think that leaves. I mean, I agree with you. I'm not going to push back that like New Super Mario Brothers for the DS or New Super Mario Brothers 2. I mean,
New Super Mario Brothers 2 is a deep cut.
If ever there was like a Anne from Arrested Development of Super Mario Brothers game, it would be New Super Mario Brothers 2. Like, you and I played this for the first time for Mario Month, I believe, and a few years ago, I think in 2020. And this was it was the first time either of us had played it, and I remember liking it, and I'm sure I could go back and listen to the episode where we talked about it.
Right.
But even at the time, I felt like we were both kind of like, it was like cotton candy. Like it didn't stick with us in any way.
You know that video of the raccoon who's like got his hand on some cotton candy, and he goes over to like a little body of water to wash it because that's what raccoons do, and it just like dissolves in his hands, and then it's gone, and he's like, wait, where's my cotton candy? That is sort of the experience of playing New Super Mario Brothers 2.
Yeah, because it's like, man, it was a Mario game. It wasn't bad, but I couldn't tell you anything that happened in it or anything that was memorable about it.
Yeah, and the thing that for me, the thing that's memorable about it is that it is like an infinite coin collector. Like, it just keeps a running total of how many coins you've collected, which is like a fun, novel thing. But it's also like it's so hollow because it's not like you use money for anything in the game. It's just a high score chase that never ends. So like even when we were talking about it, it'd be like, how many coins did you get? And like you'd tell me a number and I'd tell you a number. It'd be like, well, yeah, I guess I played a little bit longer than you did. Like
Right.
it doesn't. The accomplishment there feels very minimal. And then sort of to the same token, New Super Mario Brothers on the DS, I think only notable because it's the first of them.
I think that's true, but that is it was a real milestone.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the other one that I would make I was gonna say this is the other one I would make an argument for.
For next steps?
No, sorry. It like if we were going to swap out New Super Mario Brothers U for one of them, I think it would be the original DS one, only because it had been so long since we had had a new 2D Mario platformer.
Yeah.
That when it was announced, and it was announced with like giant Mario that was running through, like I was shook in a way that, like Wonder was a big milestone as well.
Totally.
Because it was awesome. We were getting a new Super Mario Brothers game, and it had been such a long time since that had happened before. But
and that was before the like indie thing had happened, right? Like this was when we weren't getting these types of games from anywhere.
Yeah. And so like,
but I still feel like that almost just makes it more historical curiosity than like essential touch point for gamers now.
I think that's a good point. And especially like mechanically, I can't imagine that it holds up all that well. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
I'm sure the platforming is fine, but it's another one where it's not all that memorable to me.
Yeah.
Even though I played it a bunch.
Yeah.
And a lot. Because the thing I really liked about it was the big mushroom was like a flashy marketing thing, but there's a reason it's never come back. It wasn't actually like fun.
Yeah.
But
there's no real gameplay application. Like Mario plows through like pipes and stuff. Pots. What am I talking about? But like, yeah, it's not. It just like levels the world that you're running through.
Yeah.
So like, what's the point of it?
But the mini mushrooms or whatever they're called,
I
thought that was really fun because not even necessarily in the level where where you could get a mini mushroom, but sometimes in the next level there would be a secret path.
Yeah.
Like a small pipe or like bricks that you can only get under if you are tiny. So that meant you had to, in a previous level, get the mushroom, hold on to it, like complete the level successfully,
right,
and then make your way through to this secret area. And that was a fun challenge that I feel like they haven't really gone back to that idea.
It's also just nice to like introduce more mushrooms that keep playing with the idea of Mario's size, right? Like that's a fundamental Mario-ism of like Mario starts small, he gets a mushroom, now he's big. And then New Super Mario Brothers is like, you can get an even bigger mushroom or you can get an even smaller mushroom to keep messing with Mario's size. None of the rest of these games do that.
Yeah, that's so true. And
a lot of the new games do the tiny mushroom,
but I feel like not really in the same way that they did in the original game. But it's funny to do categories like this because I agree that these are both deep cuts. Well, yeah, deep cuts, right? New Super Mario Brothers. I think New Super Mario Brothers 2, definitely a deep cut.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Deep cuts are going.
And then New Super Mario Brothers
could be a next step.
How do you feel about tentatively putting it a next step? And I think once we have other things to compare it with, we'll have a better idea of like, does it really belong? It's hard to compare New Super Mario Brothers and New Super Mario Brothers 2 because I just don't remember New Super Mario Brothers 2. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And normally when we're doing these sort of like ranking things, it's easier to be like, well, I know I like New Super Mario Brothers 2, I know I like New Super Mario Brothers better, but that's
not what
this
this
in this
exercise
case,
is.
it doesn't mean that they shouldn't be in the same category.
Right. Okay, so let's tentatively put it in
next steps. Is that what we're saying?
In next steps. But that's a real tentative.
Incredibly.
I think it could be ejected down to
easily to deep cuts.
Deep cuts,
especially when you consider New Super Mario Brothers Wii, which
I think that's a next step.
I think I think I agree with you because the multiplayer is a game changer.
Right.
For the Mario series.
Yeah. But it's also like, isn't that represented in New Super Mario Brothers U?
That's why I would say it's not essential.
Right, right.
For sure, it's not essential because
it's also like less. I mean, I guess part of the reason that like it has a less sterling reputation than like other games in the franchise is that it's just sort of unremarkably designed, right? Like in a series that's a little bit notorious for uninspired levels or like just sort of milquetoast Mario levels. New Super Mario Brothers Wii is like the king of that, right? I feel like it's when they first introduced the multiplayer and they were like every world needs to be big enough and easy enough and whatever for 4 people who don't agree on the direction of gameplay to exist in it together.
Yeah, that is interesting that you say that. That's not really my memory of it. One of the things that I liked a lot about New Super Mario Brothers, or that was fun at the time, is that there were, what is the name of like the testing group at Nintendo of Japan? I think it's like Mario Club or something like that. And there would be videos and things like that of the Mario Club players, so people who are amazing at Super Mario Brothers, essentially running these new Super Mario Brothers Wii levels, and it was incredible what like the platforming that they were able to do. And so I think that might be selling the level design of New Super Mario Brothers Wii a little bit short, because I think that the multiplayer like chaotic nature of it was made more chaotic because there were some parts where like the platforming actually mattered.
Yeah. Which is true of the of the New Super Mario Brothers U entry as well. I just think that like overall, and this is also hard because like by the time I got around to playing New Super Mario Brothers Wii, I was like in a jaded Nintendo fan phase.
Mm-hmm.
So I think my memories of it are just inherently more sour than my memories of you, which I also don't have like the highest opinion of. Like for me, the greatest heights a New Super Mario Brothers game gets is like a B minus,
Mm-hmm.
But I'm okay putting that not in essential, but in next steps.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say for New Super Mario Brothers Wii is that, like, with Wii U, I know that you and I played a lot of that together. In fact, we played, I think, through the entire Wii U version together for an episode of the show. But
and then again on Switch, right? Didn't you bring like yours over and we played it?
I can't remember. I know I played all of it on Switch, so it's possible that we played some of it in multiplayer. But New Super Mario Brothers Wii, I don't. My memories of it, the ones that stand out, are 4-player couch co-op multiplayer, and so it is like that chaotic energy is really what I associated with this game more than any of the other Mario games here, or the new Super Mario Brother games. So yeah, I don't know. I feel, to me it feels like either New Super Mario Brothers or New Super Mario Brothers Wii would go in next steps,
but not both of them.
Yeah, not necessarily. I don't know. What are you thinking?
I mean, let's put it in next steps for now.
Okay.
So that they're both New Super Mario Brothers and New Super Mario Brothers Wii are in next steps. Just because I kind of want to get the other New Super Mario Brothers series games on here.
Okay, cool.
Because I think, and for this I'm counting Super Mario Run as one of those games, and Super Mario Run is a game that I love. Right. This is a game that I put an obscene amount of time into when it came out. Like I remember that Christmas being so happy that I had a Mario game on my phone, and just like playing it all the time. And Sarah and I would like race for high scores. And like I think it's a perfectly designed Mario mobile game. Like I just think they couldn't have done what they were trying to do any better. However, it's not an essential Mario game. It is essential for understanding like Nintendo's mobile strategy. If we were doing like Nintendo mobile games, I would put it on the essential list. I would just like it would. I like you have to understand this thing. But as a Mario game, I don't think it. I think it's a deep cut.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Ditto New Super Luigi U, because it is just like the hard versions of levels from New Super Mario Brothers U, which I know we're putting in essential. And the version that you can play on Switch includes New Super Luigi U. But I would kind of recommend that someone getting into the Mario series play everything in New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe except New Super Luigi U, and then revisit everything else in that sub-series before getting into New Super Luigi U.
Yeah, it's funny. I never played. I own the Switch version that includes Super Luigi U, and then when I played New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe on the Switch, I don't think I did not spend any real amount of time playing Luigi U. I've never experienced it. That's basically like a blind spot for me.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. I think you still very well understand the Mario, the Super Mario Brothers franchise. So that's why I think we keep that in deep cuts. So far we still have New Super Mario Brothers and New Super Mario Brothers Wii in the next steps. I think that's just kind of where we're.
Yeah, let's leave them there for now. I feel like when we get to the end, the easiest way to do this will be like to really just run through the exercise of saying, "Oh, you liked Super Mario Brothers Wonder, you should play this next." And you like that game, then you should play this next. And I think that will help us with like the waterfall of this.
Yeah, I
if
think
like
you're right.
it really feels true.
To that point, much has been made of Super Mario Brothers Wonder Super Mario Brothers Wonder's similarity to Super Mario World. Let's talk about Super Mario World.
I mean, one of the best video games of all time.
I agree. One of the best video games of all time. One of the clearest realizations of like what the Super Mario Brothers formula is. I worry whenever we talk about this game, or I worried about it when we were talking about Link to the Past, and I worry about it whenever I talk about Super Metroid on one of these podcasts, that it's my favorite because I was 11 and all that nonsense. But Super Mario World just is a great game.
Yes.
And it just is what Mario is.
Yes. I think all of that is true. I think it's hard for it to not be considered unessential.
Yeah.
And kind of the same arguments that I have for A Link to the Past apply to Super Mario World as well. I think I would say, like, okay, we will grapple with Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario Brothers like 2 USA and Super Mario Brothers 3. But to me, of the 2D like Mario games through those first two generations, Super Mario World is easily even over Super Mario Brothers 3 the one that holds up the best.
Yeah. Is also like the intention made manifest, right? That like you can see in Super Mario Brothers, you can see in Super Mario Brothers 3 things that were like attempted or that they get close to, or like aesthetics that they get close to, that World just executes on.
And I also think that, to your point about like Wonder, a lot of the stuff that, like secret exits and that sort of thing, that's beginning to be like fleshed out in Super Mario World. I will say, like, and not that this prevents it from being an essential, but as far as like graphically, I would say that like Link to the Past holds up in a way that Super Mario World maybe does not as well.
Oh, that's interesting.
But I still think it's an amazing game.
Right. And it's got that killer soundtrack.
It has an amazing soundtrack. There is just like so much to discover in Super Mario World that I feel like when people talk about the similarities with World and Wonder, that to me is like the biggest similarity. In those Ask a Developer interviews with Nintendo, those developers were talking about the first time they played Super Mario Brothers and how it felt like there were all these like constant discoveries. And I felt that way with Super Mario Brothers 3 with like warp whistles and all that kind of stuff. But really, World takes it to a whole nother level.
Yeah, I mean, World is so like twisty and secrety that like the time between, just the way it plays with like the world map and like the way it transforms as you're exploring it, and there are multiple different paths through many of the worlds. You can get up on that star road and like go all the way around. There, there's just so much. There's just so much, and like all of it is hidden, but none of it is hard to find. Like it's all there for you to discover. And the levels are like short enough that you don't mind going back in to re-explore them, but they're not so short like Super Mario Brothers 3, where you're like, oh, is that it? Like the experience is over already. Um, it's just a remarkable little game.
Yeah, I really feel like if you went from, in a way that the 3D games don't necessarily like benefit from this. So time has not really been kind to Super Mario 64, but you sit down and you play Wonder and you like Wonder, you go into Super Mario World and it's gonna feel so familiar.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna be able to pick it up and you don't have to grapple with crappy camera, you don't have to grapple with any of that. It's just like, oh, yeah, I have to figure out how to use this like cape and that sort of thing, but it's just a new mechanic. But Mario controls,
Yeah.
like Mario
basically
does.
the
He's
same,
going to
yeah.
ground pound. You know, like you have like all of those things that you can do in Wonder, and I think that is a real kind of like gift to people who want to go back into the Mario library.
Yeah.
You know, like yeah, you can jump into World, and I don't feel like it's necessarily going to feel super alien in a way that like Super Mario 64 would.
But it will still offer up like the surprise, like the surprises per minute that Super Mario Brothers Wonder does, right? Like all of those star worlds are bizarre and surprising when you enter into them, and that's just something that like the game does repeatedly. Okay, so Super Mario World essential. We didn't need to talk for 10 minutes about how Super Mario World is in fact a good Mario game, but we did. Where do you want to go from there? I was kind of just grabbing one that there would be easy consensus on.
Well, let's talk about how about we talk about the land games?
Okay.
So specifically Super Mario Land for the Game Boy and Super Mario Land 2 6 golden coins also for the Game Boy.
Yes. Super Mario Land, easy deep cut for me.
I think so too.
It's a shorter Mario game. Mario feels kind of like heavy.
Yeah, the mechanics are, wasn't created with Shigeru Miyamoto's involvement. It was developed by Nintendo R&D 1, who were responsible for Metroid, but also for the creation of the Game Boy.
Which is why Super Mario Land exists at all.
Yeah.
And like we do get cool stuff from Super Mario Land. This is the first appearance of Daisy, for example, although she's basically just Peach with a different name. And we got Tatanga, which is an alien character that we like and no one remembers. But yeah, like it is just like generally a weird entry in the franchise and doesn't really feel or play like the rest of them.
Yeah, worth checking out, but a deep cut for sure.
Worth checking out when you've already done some exploring.
Yeah, you've exhausted the other Mario games. And so Super Mario Land 2 is interesting in the fact that it feels much more like a Mario game. But
and more like Super Mario World and more like Super Mario Brothers 3.
And yet
it still feels like a deep cut.
Yeah, I think so too. Some fun stuff, the first appearance of Wario, and he's looking crazier than ever.
That's true.
Like,
and huge. He's
really
looking
crazy.
huge.
He's looking crazy. He's a big boy. And he's got some crazy eyes.
And Mario, he's got a carrot that he can grab, turn himself into a rabbit. What does he do as a rabbit? He falls a little bit slower. I guess he jumps high too, but
yeah, it's like aesthetically, it's more in line with the Mario that you would expect. And but it goes some weird, crazy places and has some like funny mechanics. We did a whole episode on it back in 2019 for Weird Sequels Month, and it's a good game. But yeah, I definitely a deep cut.
And it is playable on the Nintendo Switch online in the Game Boy library, which to the point that we are recording this, the original Super Mario Land is not.
So wild.
Which I don't understand.
Technical limitations, clearly.
Yeah, that's right. Look, you need to have the expansion pack for the Switch in order to
can't get the frame rate of the little like rubber ball power up,
which is a cool thing. Like that's a neat power up that it's a ball that bounces around everywhere. But yeah, both these Game Boy games I think go in the deep cut category. Do we want to approach these NES games?
Yeah, let's talk about them.
I feel like there's going to be some like just treading on graves here, right? Like nothing about what we're about to embark on feels good to me.
I know, but we have to speak our truth about
because there are Stone Cold classics in here, and they can't all be essentials. They're not.
Right. They're not all essentials. In fact, I would argue
Lost Levels, deep cuts right now.
Lost Level is for sure a deep cut.
Yeah. Self-explanatory, or do we need to support that in any way?
So this is basically like the original Super Mario Brothers Kaizo, where it was Japan only in its initial release, direct sequel to the original Super Mario Brothers. Looks like the original Super Mario Brothers,
identical,
is just way harder.
Yeah, like that's its whole thing.
Yeah, it's like whole thing is to troll you.
Yeah, which like I don't know, Mario now is so I said that the sort of like candle of the 8-bit Mario game continues to burn, but from studios that are prioritizing challenge over experience. I would say that even those games are more welcoming and inviting than Super Mario Brothers 2: The Lost Levels.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree.
It's just not fun to play.
I have played through it on All Stars, and I'm guessing that All Stars is a little more forgiving, or that they made some sort of like quality of life changes.
I mean, you can save the game, which is one thing.
Yeah, that's gotta help.
Yeah,
but I've never made it through like the NES or a Famicom version. Of Super Mario Brothers 2.
I kind of wish that they would release a version of Super Mario Brothers 2 with like quick respawn, like right where it just like where it's like save scumming for you and just like respawns you back at the thing, and then like if you wanted to like play a ghost, so you can just like see exactly how a ghost would tackle something like that. Because the game is just it's just stupid hard.
Yeah, it goes out of its way to troll you.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I feel like all of these are difficult because Super Mario Brothers 2. If you want to talk about the USA, if you want to talk about like weirdly foundational for the series, for being a American, created for the American audience, basically.
Yeah.
Reskinning of a Japanese game, but it introduces, playable Peach, playable Toad. It introduces the idea that Luigi can jump all crazy legs, that Peach floats, that Toad's a little faster. You know what I mean? Like,
it introduces the idea that these characters can pick things up. It introduces Shy Guys. Like, yeah, but like, what's funny is it introduces Birdo. It introduces all of these like pivotal things that would become like pillars of the Super Mario Brothers series, but then also Wart and
yeah, that's
like
right.
Mauser, and like there are those masks that chase you when you pick up a key, like all this stuff where you're just like, it in some ways it is what Mario would become, and in other ways it's just like not at all.
Yeah, and we talked about, you played Wonder, you can pick up World and you're gonna feel right at home.
Right.
Not the case in Super Mario Brothers 2 USA.
So Super Mario Brothers 2 feels like a next step to me. It is not a deep cut, even though it is weird. But it's also just like so approachable. It's not super long. It's not super hard. There's a lot of fun like warps and secrets and stuff like that. I feel like it is not so unapproachable that it is a true deep cut, but it is not essential.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, it's been a lot of, like, it was strange for the time. I remember being a kid and still not being like loving it.
Yeah.
But being like, this is super different than Super Mario Brothers.
That's just what Nintendo was teaching us, though, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
Like, all like a Zelda 2 is totally different from Zelda 1. Is that the only example I have?
Hey, but that's a good example.
That's a great example.
Yeah, like Celeste.
This is a new joke format for me where
you tee up a list.
I tee up a list and I say one thing and then go.
But yeah, and also it's totally been like reclaimed, right? Like all of the stuff that was weird and crazy about it is now just part of the Super Mario Brothers series.
Absolutely. Which leaves us with Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario Brothers 3. And I'm nervous here because these are both sacred cows.
Yeah, I feel like for me, Super Mario Brothers is an easy next step. I know that in the Zelda series, I was an advocate for putting the original Legend of Zelda in deep cuts, but this one feels more approachable to me. And I think, again, it really just benefits from the fact that they nailed it on the first go, and everything has been an evolution from that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Mario plays a little different. It has, like a really rudimentary 8-bit look. But if you have played Wonder, you are going to pick up Super Mario Brothers and comprehend it. You're going to, understand it.
That is true. I think there's another thing that's important here, and it's almost what I mean. If we were making a list of all video games, it goes in essential, right? But in terms of understanding Mario, I mean, how do you understand the Mario series without having played 1-1, right? Like World 1-1 you will see this exact same thing 1,000 times throughout the course of the series. Right? Like 1-1 and 1-2. They're just like pivotal moments in gaming.
Do you know what I think about with the original Super Mario Brothers?
What's
that? And to your point, is that I didn't see the John Carpenter's original Halloween.
Yeah.
Until I was in my 20s, and when I watched Halloween for the first time, it was almost academic where.
Yes.
I watched it and I'm like, oh, I have seen all of this before because it's been ripped off by tons of movies that have come afterwards. Yes. And it didn't lessen my enjoyment of it, but there is something I think to be said. I think if you play Super Mario Brothers for the first time, having never played it before, but having played other 2D platformers, other Mario games,
yes,
that it's not that you won't enjoy it, but I think coming to the original Super Mario Brothers today would be more of an academic exercise, for the first time.
Yeah.
Than it would be one of it wouldn't have that sense of discovery or wonder. It would be now I have played the original Super Mario Brothers, and that's not a knock against it. The original Halloween is amazing, and it was, but I think a lot of this stuff is just all about when you experience it and what context you're going into it with. And that's why
I'm not arguing for it to be essential here.
Okay.
But I mean, I do think that in the abstract, if our parameters were different, we were talking about all of video games, I would say it's essential. But because,
if I was teaching a course on video game history,
right?
Then
you think
sure,
you would talk about Super Mario Brothers?
It might come up.
It might come up. But yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. That it's a template. It is the boilerplate.
Yeah.
Right.
But it would not be my immediate go-to if somebody was like,
right.
You just finished Wonder and you loved it. Now play this.
Right. Have a few more reps of fantastic games under your belt, and then see where it all came from in Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's put that in the next steps, which leads us to Super Mario Brothers 3, which, I don't know. Is it because I was 9 years old, or is it essential?
It's an amazing game. I would make almost the same exact argument as we're making for the original Super Mario Brothers as for Super Mario Brothers 3, and I think it's a next step.
Oh, so
because I think
hurts me a
little. And I could be wrong, because
right.
World and 3 are very different games. Like you said, 3 is so fast paced. They're almost like micro levels a lot of the time, right? It's it's like one gimmick, it plays it well, and then it's out.
Right.
You can run through those levels really quickly. And yet I remember being a kid and spending so much time in Super Mario Brothers 3 and still feeling that sense of there was so much to like see and explore and like secret passages that I learned about from like my babysitter and you know what I mean, like all that kind of stuff.
But how to remove our 8-year-old experience from Super Mario Brothers 3. Yeah. Which I think is why you're like pulling it down towards the
I'm weighting it down because
you're weighting it down because you naturally weight it high.
And I'm also thinking again, I'm trying to filter it all through like you loved Wonder, then you will love this. And I think
Wonder and Odyssey, those are our touch points.
Yeah, Wonder and Odyssey, or I guess I was just focusing on Wonder because it's like
2D,
a 2D. But you're right. Yeah, you loved Wonder and Odyssey. I think you'll love this. And I feel good about World, and I feel good about you. But 3 feels like the thing you play after World. To me. But I'm open.
Boy, I don't know. And I know that every time we've like done any sort of Mario ranking, 3 and World come up against each other in a way that's always like, like they're titans. So I truly don't know what to do here, and my gut is it goes in Essential, because it's like you say, it's the same it has the same kind of appeal as Super Mario Brothers, but it's sort of like.
It's definitely the best version.
It's the best version
of that,
the NES.
of that 8-bit thing, which there were really in the US only 2 that even were modeled like that. The original Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers 3.
And I think World is a better game.
I agree with that. Yeah. I've settled that is the place that, because I remember when we started this podcast, there was, but that is the place that has settled in my heart right now, is that I think World is the better game. But I'm fine with putting 3 in Essentials.
Let's put 3 in Essentials, and if our hearts change, our hearts change. All right. Now we gotta start dealing with some 3D and some kind of 3D games.
Yeah. Do you want to? Should we take a brief breather to figure out what we're gonna do with Mario Maker?
Oh, sure. You mean before? So not like we're not taking a break in like the recording.
Right. Yeah. You don't have to key up like a music cue or anything.
Thank God. I was gonna mess it up. Okay, so let's talk about a Super Mario Maker. First of all, the original Super Mario Maker will not be playable, or like levels will not be shareable. You will not be able to download levels by like, is it March of this year? Do you remember?
Next year, right?
Of 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so. I think that is what they announced.
So I guess like it still sort of exists as because it didn't have its own like campaign in the same way that Super Mario Maker 2 does. So it almost just becomes a weird, inaccessible relic in a couple months anyway.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling is that I don't really think it should count. I think it's its own.
You think it's its own?
I think
series?
It's its own like series that wouldn't be included in this list. But if we are including it, which I'm not like vehemently opposed to, I would put it in deep cuts for sure. Both of them. I think both would be deep cuts.
Even though, like, to your point of like you enjoyed Wonder, you will have a fun time playing Super Mario Maker 2, and you'll understand it.
Yeah, but it is definitely not where I would tell someone to go next. It's like, hey, you liked Wonder? How about this game that's primarily about, building your own Mario levels? It feels like a step too soon.
Yeah, I suppose that is true, but I feel like it is not really like. Super Mario Maker is about a lot of things, right? It's about playing the Nintendo made levels. It's about playing levels that other people made, and then like for the people who are interested in it, it is also about making Mario levels. But I feel like the maker part of it is the third word for a reason, right? That like it's a Super Mario Brothers experience, and then it's a maker experience.
Yeah,
But I also don't know where to put them. And with Maker itself being, a weird technological orphan, that sort of bolsters the idea that they shouldn't be in this list at all.
Well, okay. I'm going to argue against myself and say that if they're on this list, the reason I think they should be in deep cut is similar to the reason that we put Zelda games in deep cut, where it's like I see your point about Super Mario Maker 2 and how they make a bigger deal about the campaign. But I think that the joy of Mario Maker 2 is that you are super familiar with the tropes of the Mario series.
Sure.
And so when they mix those up or they subvert them or they do something like that's kind of, I think, the whole thing of Super Mario Maker.
Sure.
Is, hey, we've given you the tools to now do anything. And what most people want to do is not just create a nice Super Mario level. They want to take the tools that Nintendo provided them and create something unexpected or new or
that plays Take On Me.
Right, yeah.
The music blocks, yeah.
Exactly. And so it's not that they're like that the platforming in Mario Maker 2 and the Nintendo created levels is no good or anything like that. It all just feels very like inside baseball-y. But all that being said, I think for the right person, there are people who love level builders or just in life are like tinkerers or they like putting Legos together. And I think for those people, Super Mario Maker 2 and those the level creator, like the tools are absolutely incredible. I just have a really hard time arguing as like a greatest hits essentials next step deep cuts for the Mario series as a whole that it's anything but a deep cut.
What do you think about Super Mario Maker and the fact that it is basically dying?
Yeah, I think the fact that you can't share levels with people anymore, like download other people's levels, will be is a real bummer. But I think the Maker part of it was probably better than Maker 2, where having like the Wii U pad just made everything so much easier.
Oh God, it was so easy and so fun.
And like inaccessibility, definitely a mark against it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't tell somebody to go out and buy a Wii U for it. But hey, you really love Mario after you played all the other ones? Go buy a Wii U. Check out.
You got a pair of Mario Makers.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. We're going to put them both in the deep cut category, which has now gotten just about as big as the Zelda one. So. But now we're moving on to some 3D boys.
Yeah, all right. Let's do it.
We're not taking any kind of break here. I'm not queuing up any music. Super Mario 64, let's talk about it. A game that is a game that I love, introduces Mario to 3D space, sort of convinces everyone that you can have a 3D platformer that you can like. I just always think about like the 3D games that came out before, and they're like a Tomb Raider and Resident Evil and like all these things where it's like no one knew how to deal with this, and Nintendo's solution is not the solution that we all landed on eventually, like 10 years later, but like it's pretty close.
Yeah.
And like if its worst crime is like sometimes you wrestle the camera, it's pretty good.
It is. So I don't have the fondness for 64 that you do. We didn't own it, and so, or maybe we owned it but we got it late, so it was something that I experienced at primarily at like friend's house and all that kind of stuff. The first time I played through it was the DS version, and then played it again when we were doing Mario Month to talk about it, and that was and that was on 3D All Stars that came out in 2020. I think that time has been unkind to Mario 64 mechanically. How many stars do you have to get to be able to beat Bowser?
I think it's 70
or something like that.
Yeah.
When I got to 70, I was like, thank God, like I'm done, like I'm out of here. Like I really wrestled with the camera.
And I keep telling you, just let the camera do its thing.
I know. It's just so counterintuitive. Like I don't think it controls particularly well through a modern lens, and so I think the ceiling for this one is next steps. I honestly would put it in deep cuts.
Oh, that I disagree with putting it in deep cuts. I hear I hear what you're saying about it, but I guess I just don't Agree.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's fair. That's fair.
Because like I think that you can make similar arguments that like the Nintendo 64 versions of the Legend of Zelda games suffer from the same sort of like you have to wrestle the camera, or that like the movement isn't quite clicked in the same way that like we know it to be now in 3D versions of these things. But it's just so like primordial for 3D Mario. I'm not going to argue to put it in essential, because I sort of think that I would rather see any of the games on here except for Sunshine in the essential category. So my instinct is for next steps.
Yeah, I think that is I think that's fair.
Okay.
Like you get through Odyssey, you get through and I think we should just I think we can just jump right to it. Like I think it's between Galaxy and Galaxy 2 as an essential.
Yes.
Right? As like the and I honestly could see an argument for both being an essential, but it feels a little bit silly. You know what I mean?
I do, because they're like just variations on the same game, basically.
So
yes,
Galaxy 2 is, I think, the better of the two.
I'll agree.
The thing that makes it, I don't know, but this may not even be true, but my mind is saying like, yeah, but like, do you only know that Galaxy 2 is, better because you were coming directly from Galaxy?
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I do think that the central hub world of Super Mario Galaxy, the original, is annoying enough that Super Mario Galaxy 2 is an imminently more playable game. That you don't have to deal with this comet observatory thing and like how to navigate around it. That it's just a streamlined version of Galaxy.
It is super streamlined. Like they go back to the 2D Mario.
Yeah.
Just you're maneuvering on a map, moving to like the next level. I played Galaxy this summer. There were like a few weeks or something that we were between releases, and so I was, because I had never played it on 3D All Stars, and so I was checking it out. And I actually didn't find the observatory as annoying as I remember it being on my Wii playthrough. That's just an observation, not a reason to put it in one category or another. But yeah, I feel like Galaxy 2 just does everything better.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, let's put Galaxy 2 up in the essential category. Galaxy 1 also has this, it happens like 2 or 3 times in the game, this like mini game where you're riding a manta ray, and it's like a motion control thing where you have to like surf on him, and like it sucks. It's bad and it's no good. Sarah's in the background right now shaking her head no. She hates it. But let's put that in next steps.
Yeah, I think
Super Mario Galaxy, the original.
Yeah. Okay, so we are left with Sunshine, 3D World, 3D Land, and Bowser's Fury.
Yeah. I feel like you're the Sunshine champion.
I am the Sunshine champion. I'm not blind to its faults, of which there are many.
For example, we still don't know if Flood has a soul.
Yeah. And that's just difficult to reckon with, right? Can you recommend something where one of its main characters, you can't tell, like if somebody asked you, oh, you like Sunshine so much? Does Flood have a soul?
You wouldn't be able to answer the question.
I wouldn't be able to answer that.
So where do you put Sunshine? Sunshine is a game that I've never finished. And I played through some of it when the 3D All Stars came out. And was not compelled to keep going.
I would put it in deep cuts for sure. Like it is a chunky enough game that I have a hard time recommending it to somebody who isn't already, like a big Mario booster. Right. I would not want somebody to go from Odyssey to playing Sunshine, or even, playing Galaxy 2 and then going to Sunshine.
Yeah. No, I mean for sure it's like, no, get through the Galaxy games first. All right. Which leaves now the sort of 3D family, like the Super Mario 3D Land, Super Mario 3D World, and of course Bowser's Fury. Super Mario 3D Land, I think, just goes in deep cut.
I think so too,
because it is a stub of an idea that has exploded in Super Mario 3D World, which just does it better on every count.
Yeah. Yep. So I think Bowser's Fury is what I have in my hand and what I was deep sighing about.
Right.
Because Bowser's Fury is a lot of fun,
Mm-hmm.
but I would call it a deep cut.
Well, here's the thing. I feel like it is positionally related to Super Mario 3D World, and that it belongs on the rung below wherever we put Super Mario 3D World.
Okay.
So I think we need to position that, because Mark, I will be no surprise to you that I put Super Mario 3D World into the essential category.
Yeah, I would say this is one of your desert island games.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's in my top 5 games of all time games. It's for me the perfect multiplayer Mario experience, the perfect single player Mario experience. It's fun, it's fast, it's adorable. The platforming is great. It gets you amazing challenges. There are secrets everywhere. I don't know. I think it's one of the best games ever made. And the fact that it is hyper accessible on the Switch only like adds to it for me. That like, yeah, Super Mario 3D World is an essential game.
Yeah, I was prepared to make an argument against it, but I can't really. It's such a good game.
But I mean, you were prepared to make an argument against it as like obligatory, or
yeah,
like,
yeah, exactly. As I was going to be like,
you were going to be Keanu Reeves,
but
and devil's advocate. This thing.
Yes, yeah, no, yes,
I could see you were like, is
Constantine,
that the one?
Yeah, it's just hard to make like any sort of argument against Super Mario 3D World. If I were to make one,
yeah,
it would be that it appears to be an evolutionary dead end for the series, like an experiment that I don't know that we will ever see another game of its ilk. Hopefully we do, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully it's something that comes back in the future. But yeah, throw it in essentials.
It's interesting to consider evolutionary dead ends in like the world of like Mario games, just because like it carves such a specific branching path that is part 3D Mario and part something else.
It feels like like the presentation of it is almost like what's that Kirby golf game on the Super Nintendo? But you know how like I feel like in like in the Super Nintendo in the 16-bit era age, there was this like, well, we can't do 3D, but we can present it in this sort of, like askew view that gives
that like 3/4 perspective,
and
like Sonic 3, it's called Sonic 3D, Sonic 3D Blast, whatever it's called.
Remembering names of games is obviously not.
It's not happening right now.
It's not happening right now.
We've been going for an hour and 15 minutes, so.
but I feel like 3D World, it captures that sort of spirit to me, where it's like, well, there's no reason that we have to present it this way other than we want to.
Yes, and the game doesn't always like take advantage of the 3D-ness of it, but like every now and then you will really be in a world that you have to explore, like on all like a complete like 6 axes or 3 axes in 6 different directions. Kirby's Dream Course is the name of the game. I had to look it up. I had to look it up.
I was gonna guess Kirby : he's the ball.
Well, that could also be Kirby's Pinball. That could be Kirby's Block Ball.
That's why they didn't go with it.
He's frequently the ball. Tilt and Tumble, he's kind of a ball in that. There we go. I got it back. I just named 3 Kirby games. Okay, so then positionally then, I think Bowser's Fury becomes a next step. Because if you enjoyed playing Super Mario 3D World and Odyssey, which we are sort of taking as for granted, the next closest thing to Odyssey is Bowser's Fury.
Yeah, it is a weird, like, it has the spirit, I'll say, of Super Mario 3D World with a lot of what Odyssey's going for. Yeah.
It's just like the open world is so big and so open, like in a way that even it's like a very big kingdom in Odyssey.
Yeah.
Right. So okay, we're putting it in the next steps category. Which, Mark, that's the last one we have to place.
Okay.
So let's sort of review what we have here and see if we still agree with all of it. Should we start at the bottom?
I think we should start at the top because I think we should waterfall it and be like, does this follow? Like, does this make sense for somebody's Mario journey?
Sure. You liked Super Mario Brothers Wonder and or Super Mario Brothers Odyssey. You would also like
Super Mario 3D World,
Super Mario Galaxy 2,
Super Mario Brothers 3,
Super Mario World,
New Super Mario Brothers U.
Yeah, I feel good about all of that. The one that
is
like
it you?
It's
I
it's
bumped
you.
up against it. When
you
we
bumped
were
up
reading
against it.
too.
You like because the other four are like undeniable.
Here's the only thing.
Yeah.
And it truly is the only thing.
Yeah.
Is that you is the only like modern Mario aesthetic one that would be an essential. Do you know what I mean? Where
Besides 3D World.
Sorry, 2D platformers.
Okay.
Like 2D platformer, like the only one that has the aesthetic of Mario as people know it.
Yeah.
But that's really, I think, the only argument for having it an essential.
So what do you think? You think that's not a strong enough argument? We bump it down to next steps?
I think maybe.
Okay, all right. New Super Mario Brothers U is being knocked down to next steps, which means the next steps. Okay, so you enjoyed exploring the rest of Mario. You've played 3D World, Galaxy 2, Mario 3, and Mario World.
No, I can't do it. You've got to go back up there because I can totally see me like telling my nieces or nephews where it's like, oh, you played Wonder, like you should play U. I think that for a certain audience is going to be an easier transition. Going back to World or 3.
It's also got a little bit more of the like hang out, have fun vibe than the like here's a tough challenge. You can get through it together in a way that's not like
But the only way we would have come to that is if we tried to put it down into.
I agree, and then realized it didn't fit.
Yep.
Okay. Next in the next step category, Bowser's Fury,
Super Mario Brothers 2 USA,
New Super Mario Brothers,
New Super Mario Brothers Wii,
Super Mario Brothers,
Super Mario 64,
and Super Mario Galaxy. I feel good about all of that now.
Yep.
And then in the deep cut, we've got a pile
we have
here.
A ton. Super Mario Sunshine.
Yeah, that makes sense. Super Mario Land.
Super Mario Land 2.
Nope,
6 golden coins.
Super Mario. What was that? No,
this one is Super Mario Brothers 2: The Lost Levels. I just already started saying Super Mario Land.
I
2,
see.
Golden
Sorry,
coins, so
you were going to cover for it, and I messed it up. I'm
sorry. Super Mario 3D Land.
Both Super Mario Maker games.
Now Super Mario Brothers or Super Mario Land 2: 6 golden coins.
New Super Luigi U.
Super Mario Run
and New Super Mario Brothers 2. I think those are all undeniably the deep cuts of this. I think we did it, Mark. There's nothing in here now that I'm second guessing. All right, let's close this out. That's going to do it for this episode and this year of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Thank you so much for listening to us throughout 2023. What is the year?
Yeah,
2023. Did I say that in just the strangest way?
Sounds like we recorded this in like 2022 or
I think
something.
We might
were
have,
panicking at the end. What year are we recording this in? What year is this releasing?
Okay, well, I didn't want to bring this up earlier, but I'm a time traveler. Did this whole episode so I could ask you what year it was. That's going to do it. You can email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. If you think we got anything wrong here, I don't think we did. This is definitive. And otherwise, have a happy new year. We will see you in January. Anthony DeLuca made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying thanks for listening. Happy New Year.